Now, our third speaker to start us off is Mr. Steve Stockton, who is from the U.S. Corps of Engineers.
Thank you, Jerry. Distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I've been asked to offer some reflections on the lessons learned from large infrastructure water resource projects in the United States. Infrastructure investment has been an important tool in building the United States. Indeed, water transport was used by General George Washington to encourage delegates to attend the Constitutional Convention for the young, emergent United States. In 1808, the Gallatin Report, commissioned by our third president, Thomas Jefferson, set the framework for use of our waterways for over 100 years. It said that U.S. waterways to be used to ensure national security, encourage economic development, and to build the Union. Water events are very much part of the political landscape in the United States. For example, water events such as the floods have transformed political landscape in the United States. The 1927 flood on the Mississippi River helped create a great migration from south to north. It transformed political allegiances of major social groups and changed the technical approaches to flood control along our rivers. From levees only to an integrated approach that leaves room for the river, provides backwater storage area, floodways, to an integrated approach to managing floods. Recently, Hurricane Katrina also had economic, social, and political impacts. Infrastructure investments have been a vital part of our ability to maintain social stability in times of stress resulting from natural disasters. In the United States, authority to manage water resources is shared among the states and the federal government. The forms and degree of that sharing has changed over the years and continues to change, and the nature of water resources investments has depended on the ever-changing relationship between the federal and state governments. Federal involvement in large-scale water infrastructure investment has moved from direct government engineering and construction towards grants, regulations, and enabling the states and local entities to provide them information and tools to do the work themselves. The Corps of Engineers has been integral in this waterways history, which in turn has been central to the development of the United States. In our early history, the only American engineers were Army engineers, and the United States Military Academy at West Point was our only engineering school. As a result, the U.S. Congress asked Army engineers to keep our harbors open for traffic, open inland waterways for navigation, and to map the North American West for roads and railroads. In this way, the Corps of Engineers became a significant civilian national public works organization. Even as the nation grew and other engineering capacities developed in the public and private sectors, this role of being the nation's public engineers remained. The road to achieving multiple and integrated uses of water in the United States has been and continues to be long and challenging. We do not have a single national water policy, rather we have a family of policies. Indeed, many argue we do not need one national water policy. The United States is a federation of sovereign states, and water, in the first instance, is under the sovereignty of those states. The federal government and its agencies, such as the Corps of Engineers, has gradually become involved with water investment, management, and operations, but the states retain ultimate authority. While the mechanisms for multiple use management of U.S. rivers have varied and have left a trail of successes and failures, the impacts of multiple water resources uses on our waterways have been immense. In the 1920s and 30s, most citizens in the Tennessee Valley had no electricity, and almost a third were without adequate sanitation. Like people in many parts of the world today, most residents of the Tennessee Valley had to carry water into their homes. Few had lighting or refrigeration. Most lived on subsistence farming and tilled depleted soil. And flooding was a serious and repetitive concern. As a result of coordinated multiple-use water investments in a single generation, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions in today's dollars, of flood damages were prevented. Literacy rates approached 100%. Life expectancy dramatically increased. Malaria, typhoid, and other diseases were controlled. Hundreds of kilometers of navigable waterways provided vital trade links from interior regions to the coast and out to sea. Innovations in soil management turned unproductive land into highly productive agricultural areas with farm productivity increasing dramatically. Electricity drew industries, people, and jobs into the Tennessee Valley. While the Columbia River system in the northwestern United States is quite different in many ways, the story was much the same. A poor region became technologically advanced, and the gross domestic product of this region alone would become one of the largest in the world. Started in the late 1920s and continuing today, the Mississippi River and Tributaries Project constitutes one of the largest multi-purpose flood management programs in the world, covering over 92,000 square kilometers with almost $500 million invested between 1928 and 2004. This return on investment was about $24 for every $1 invested. The program sought to harmonize flood management with navigation and other operations on the Mississippi. Nationally, while flood damages have increased over time, damages as a percentage of gross domestic product have decreased. Federal flood damages protection projects have prevented $6 of flood damage for every $1 invested. The effectiveness of water resources investments for creating a platform for growth depends greatly on their multi-purpose capacities. Properly planned investments provide the tools to use the same water for multiple purposes such as flood management, hydropower, transport, water supply, irrigation supply, recreation, and in-stream flows for environmental sustainment. Multipurpose development also creates the opportunity to deliver social benefits through the management of droughts and floods. Another important lesson the Corps has learned over its long history is that investments in flood and water-related risk reduction are actually investments in economic growth and development and need to be nested with other beneficial uses of the water. Yet, difficult as it is, especially given the complicated nature of our federal system, multiple-use water management has been a binding force in the United States and has produced vast transformative impacts in creating a platform for socio-economic growth. That's the good news. On the other side, we have learned that these almost incalculable benefits have come at significant costs to certain social groups and our environment. For example, 40% of the coastal marshes of the Mississippi Delta have been lost. Such losses contribute to the destructive power of hurricanes, such as Katrina, and in the long run could undermine the very economic benefits that our investments have enabled. As another example, amid the socioeconomic benefits produced by the Columbia River system, declining salmon returns were detected over time. Hatcheries were no longer seen as a solution, and other solutions have been employed to seek balance salmon and hydropower. Between 1981 and 1992, government agencies have spent an estimated $3 billion on salmon protection. Understanding these costs gained from years of experience should be important to those now undertaking waterway investments. Over time, major unforeseen impacts and costs of our infrastructure investments have become clear. In the early 20th century, water investment strategy was driven by the wise use or utilitarian environmental philosophy, which supported the idea of building infrastructure to help people and to better distribute wealth. By the late 1960s and 1970s, however, after much of its basic macro water infrastructure was built, the U.S. focused on service delivery levels and the possibility that unchecked development could actually destroy the resource base. In this situation, the preservativist strand of environmental philosophy became more prominent than the utilitarian. It supported new environmental regulations, and the regulatory approach to waterways emerged as dominant. Today, we are involved in a public debate over how we want to design and control our environments, how much to preserve it, and how much to change it. Regulatory tools alone are not up to this task. We need broader public policy planning tools with a capacity to encourage discernment of future visions for water uses or management of river basins. They must be based on design objectives, risk assessments, creative development of alternatives, and enhanced real-time monitoring capabilities to adapt and enable trade-off decision-making. As we pursue new ways to organize around river deltas, stakeholder partnerships have been formed to facilitate development of that consensus. Good examples can be found in the San Francisco Bay, Gulf Coast, and Chesapeake Bay areas. The estuary focus is critical in an era of climate change and projected sea level rise. Corps of Engineers is part of growing federal and state coordinated efforts to respond to the challenge of a changing climate. The Corps and other federal agencies are currently developing updated coastal guidance addressing climate change impacts, responses, and adaptation. Collaborations among agencies have resulted in the publication of several documents for addressing climate change. New guidance tools and partnerships are needed to broaden the range of benefit, risk, cost calculations. New partnerships are also needed, especially with the environmental community, for the government to be able to describe ecological goals to make and articulate trade-offs. Non-governmental organizations such as the Nature Conservancy are excellent partners in developing sustainable water resource solutions.
1 minute.
I'm almost through.
Okay.
Inclusion of stakeholders in deliberations of water planning and negotiations over alternatives is critical. The Corps has learned many consensus building efforts over the last 30 years. This has included established affecting partnerships with environmental and conservation groups. And lastly, there are only short sound bites in a complex history of multiple purpose water use investments and current policy concerns of the U.S. But as recent worldwide water-related disasters have shown, we live in a global world and need to cooperate with each other to learn how to help our people adapt to changing water needs and to the impacts of water-related events.
Thank you very much.